Hey, what's up, everyone? Tonight I'm bringing you 4 creepy Reddit posts that, honestly, kept me up. If you enjoy it, hit subscribe and leave a like. Here we go. I, 26, female, found an old blog I never wrote, and it knows what I did last summer. Some confessions don't wait to be spoken. Some of them just appear, already written, in your own voice. My name is Claire. I'm 26, and I keep the books for a small accounting firm 2 towns over from where I grew up. I still live in the same little house I was raised in because my mother had a hip replacement 2 years ago, and we agreed it made sense for me to stay. Our life is genuinely boring in the way I always wanted it to be. I drive in by 7:30, I balance ledgers all day, I bring home takeout on Fridays, and my mother and I watch cooking shows until she falls asleep in her chair. I'm telling you all of this so you understand. Nothing about me is interesting. There is no reason for anyone to write about me. There is especially no reason for me to have a blog. Last Tuesday, I had one of those slow evenings where you end up vanity searching your own name just to see what's out there. Mostly it was the usual: my LinkedIn, an old high school track result, a tagged photo from a cousin's wedding. But on the second page of results, there was a link to a personal blog under the username Quiet Ledger. I have never used that handle anywhere in my life. I clicked it, expecting some stranger who happened to share my name. It wasn't a stranger. The very first post on the front page was about my mother's hip surgery, the date she went in, the hospital, the fact that I cried in the parking garage on level 3 because the elevator smelled like wet paper and I just couldn't get back in it. Nobody knows that detail. I never told anyone. She kept scrolling. That was her first mistake. The archive went back almost 6 years. Every entry was written in my voice. I mean exactly my voice. The way I trail off mid-sentence, the way I always say anyway twice in a row when I'm changing the subject. There was a post about the lemon cake my mother made for my 23rd birthday, which I had requested specifically because I was tired of chocolate. There was a post about the dent on the rear bumper of my car, the one I got backing into a concrete post at the pharmacy and never reported to insurance. Small things, true things. Things only I would bother to remember. I sat on the couch for maybe an hour trying to talk myself down. Old social media I'd forgotten, a diary app from college that got scraped, some explanation, any explanation. Eventually I refreshed the archive page, I think just to prove to myself the list wasn't going to grow. A new entry had appeared at the top, backdated 4 years ago, almost to the day. It described, in calm and careful detail, the night I sat in my older cousin Marcus's kitchen and told him I had been skimming small amounts from one of our clients' payroll runs. 200 here, 350 there. Nothing anyone would catch in a quarterly. The post quoted the exact number I started with. It described the wine we were drinking and the way Marcus set his glass down very slowly when I said it. The thing is, that conversation never happened. I have never told Marcus. I have never told anyone. The skimming is real, the confession is not. And it's sitting there now, on a public website, in my own handwriting, dated 4 years ago. I didn't sleep that first night. I sat on the couch with my laptop and I read that confession post maybe 40 times. The longer I read it, the worse it got, because the cadence wasn't just close to mine, it was mine. I always do this thing where I start a sentence with, "so anyway," and then circle back to a detail I forgot. The post did that twice. There's also a word I have misspelled my entire adult life, no matter how many times autocorrect has tried to save me. Definitely. It's in the post. Twice. Exactly the way I type it. I called Marcus the next morning. I told myself I was just checking in. He picked up on the second ring, half laughing about how I never call before noon. I tried to be casual. I asked him if he remembered that night at his apartment, the one with the cheap wine, when I had a sort of a heavy conversation with him. He went quiet for a second and then said, "Claire, you've never had a heavy conversation with me in your life. That's kind of our whole thing." He laughed again. I laughed too. I think I did a convincing job. I don't actually remember what we talked about after that. When I hung up, I tried to log into the blog. I tried every password I have ever used, going back to middle school. The one with my dog's name, the one with the apartment number from college, the one I'm a little embarrassed to even type. Nothing. Not even a wrong password message. Just a polite little shake of the form and a suggestion to reset. So I clicked reset. The recovery email it offered to send the link to was partially masked, the way these things are. But the visible characters weren't random. They were the letters of my full name, shuffled. My first name, middle name, last name, all there, just out of order. I stared at it until the screen dimmed. She bought a notebook that afternoon, a small one, the kind you can hide in a drawer. I started keeping track. Date the post claims to be from. Date and time I first noticed it. What it was about. Who else, theoretically, could possibly know? That column stayed very, very short. Before bed, I refreshed the archive one more time, because I had to. There was a new entry at the top, backdated to a Sunday in March of my second year out of college. It described the afternoon I told my mother the grocery money had gone to a textbook I needed for a night class. There was no textbook. There was no night class. I had spent the money on a concert ticket and a hotel room I was too embarrassed to admit to. I have never told a single human being on this planet what that money actually went to. It is in my head and nowhere else. It was the kind of small, ugly little lie you tell your mother once and then carry quietly for the rest of your life. The post described the lie. It described the concert. It even named the opening act, which I had forgotten until I read it and then remembered with a jolt like someone flicking a light on in a room I hadn't been in for years. I closed the laptop. I wrote the entry in my notebook. Under the Who Else Could Know column, I wrote, for the second time, the same two words. No one. It got into the office on a Thursday. Vanessa, who sits across from me and brings me coffee whenever the machine is being mean to her, leaned over the partition around mid-morning and said, "Hey, I didn't know you wrote. Somebody emailed the general inbox a link to your stuff. I read a couple. It's kind of personal, but it's good." She said it with this little encouraging smile like she just paid me a compliment about a creative side project. I asked her, very carefully, what she meant by personal. She shrugged and said, "I don't know, like the one about your mom. About the elevator." She said it like it was nothing. She went back to her desk. I sat there with my hands flat on the keyboard for a long time. When I finally opened the blog at my desk, there was a new post, dated 3 years ago in early autumn. It described the first time I changed a number on a client invoice. It named the client. It described the iced oat milk latte sitting on the corner of my desk, sweating onto the same stack of receipts I was rifling through. It described how I told myself it was a rounding correction. It described how I felt absolutely nothing afterward, which had bothered me more than the act itself. I closed the tab. I closed it again from the recent tabs list. I cleared my history. I sat very still until my hands stopped shaking enough that I could go to the bathroom and run cold water over them. That night, my mother asked if I was eating. She said it in the gentle way she uses when she already knows the answer. I told her work was busy. She let me lie. She always lets me lie. I went home that weekend with a plan. I wiped my phone down to factory settings. I changed every password I have on every account to long random strings I stored in a fresh manager with a brand new master. I unplugged the smart speaker my cousin Marcus had given me 2 birthdays ago. I covered the laptop camera. I felt, for about 6 hours, like I was finally doing something. The morning came. So did the next post. It was at the top of the archive when I opened the laptop with my coffee, backdated to the previous evening, written in past tense. It described, in calm, sequential order, walking through the house unplugging things. It described the exact wording on the factory reset confirmation screen. It described how I had stood in the kitchen with the smart speaker in my hand and almost cried, but didn't, because my mother was asleep down the hall. It ended with a sentence that I am going to type here exactly as it appeared. She thinks if she takes enough things apart, eventually she'll find the part that is doing this. I am posting here because I don't know who else to ask. I don't know what platform this falls under. I don't know if I'm being stalked or hacked or losing my mind. I keep coming back to the fact that nothing on that blog is invented. Every single entry is something I actually did, actually thought, actually hid. The lies are mine. The misspellings are mine. The voice is mine. If anyone has ever seen anything remotely like this, please tell me. I'll read everything. Moth in a jar. The detail about it being backdated is what gets me. Someone wants you to believe it has always been there. Third floor thrift. The voice matching yours is the worst part. That isn't scraping. That's someone who has listened to you for a very long time. Northbound Nat. Curious what platform it's on. Some of the older blog hosts had a known exploit where you could register a domain in someone else's name if you had their email recovery question. Did you ever do one of those silly Facebook quizzes around 2018? It's one of the old free hosts, yeah. And to answer your question directly, I did do those quizzes. A lot of them. My mother used to send them to me as a joke because she thought they were harmless. I checked this morning, and the recovery email on the blog is one I haven't used since college.
I don't even know the password to that inbox anymore.
2 days later, she came back with an update, and the room she was sitting in was not her own. The blog posted again while I was with the lawyer. I took everyone's advice. I booked a consultation with an attorney downtown, the kind whose website has a stock photo of a handshake and a phone number you can actually call. I went on my lunch break. I wore a blazer, like that was going to help. In the lobby, I opened a clean browser on my phone, a private window, no history, nothing logged in. I typed my full legal name into the search bar. First name, middle name, last name. The blog was the first result. Not the third, not the fifth. The first. Above my LinkedIn. Above the wedding photo. Indexed under my real name, with a little description preview pulled from the most recent post. According to the search cache, it had been indexed that way for almost 4 years. The lawyer was a calm man in his 50s with very neat fingernails. I told him everything. I showed him the archive. I watched him scroll for what felt like a long time without his face moving at all. Then he stopped on one of the older entries and asked me, very gently, who else had access to my devices. Nobody, I said. He turned the laptop around. He'd pulled up some kind of metadata view I didn't even know existed. Every post on that blog had been written from one of my devices. My old college laptop, my current phone, the desktop at the office. The IP addresses matched places I had actually been. The time zones matched trips I had actually taken. There was a post written from a hotel in Denver on a weekend I had been in a hotel in Denver. He set the laptop down and said, "Miss, I have to ask, are you certain you didn't write these?" I said yes. He looked at me for a long moment, and I could see him deciding what kind of client I was. That was when the new post appeared at the top of the feed, while we were both looking at the screen. It was dated for that minute. It described the lawyer's office. It described the framed diploma behind his head. It described his tie, which was navy with a thin gold stripe. It described the unopened bottle of water on the desk between us, and it described the small chip in the rim of the coffee cup he had set down next to it. He closed the laptop slowly. He said, in a much quieter voice, that he didn't think he was the right fit for my case, and that I should leave. I checked the referral stats from my car in the parking garage. The site has a public dashboard. The top recurring reader, by a wide margin, comes from an IP block registered to my firm's biggest client. They have been visiting the blog, on average, twice a week for over a year. I am sitting in that car typing this. I don't know how to drive home. Ledger lines. As someone who works in finance, please stop touching the site and talk to an actual attorney before you do anything else. Do not log in. Do not comment. Do not even screenshot from your home network. Wren and rope. Op, please update. And please be careful about who you tell in person. Whoever is doing this clearly already knows who's in your life. Salt Circle Sam. The Marcus entry is what would break me. That's not surveillance. That's a confession you never made out loud. How does anyone get that? Third floor thrift. That's what I keep circling back to. Unless she said it out loud to someone or wrote it in a notes app that synced somewhere she forgot about, there is no clean explanation. And the "forgot about" option is honestly the scariest one because it means she handed it over herself years ago. I called the hosting company the next morning. I sat in my car in the firm's parking lot and I waited 40 minutes on hold so I could explain, very calmly, that someone had created a site impersonating me and I needed it taken down. The woman on the line was professional and patient. She pulled up the account. She asked me to verify the registered email and the security question. I couldn't because they aren't mine. She told me, very kindly, that the account had been in good standing for over 6 years, that the owner had a long history of normal activity, and that what I was describing sounded like I was trying to gain access to someone else's site. She suggested I might want to seek legal counsel before contacting them again. She used the word impersonator. About me. The client pulled the contract that Friday. No call, no email, just a polite letter from their corporate office about restructuring their vendor relationships. My boss called me into his office on Monday. He didn't yell. He never yells. He told me I was being suspended pending an internal audit, that the firm took these matters seriously, and that he hoped, for my sake, that the audit would clear me. He didn't say of what. He didn't have to. I drove home in the middle of the day for the first time in years. My mother was in the kitchen. She had the laptop open on the table in front of her, and she was scrolling. She didn't look up when I came in. She just kept scrolling. After a while, she said, without looking at me, "Claire, the textbook for the night class, the one in March." She said it flat, not a question. I sat down across from her. I didn't answer. We ate dinner that night in a silence I have never heard in this house before, and I have lived in it my whole life. The blog kept going. Of course it did. A post appeared about the call with the hosting company, written from my point of view, ending with the sentence, "She could hear the woman deciding she was the liar." A post appeared about my boss's office, the gray carpet, the way he had folded his hands. A post appeared about my mother at the kitchen table, and it described what she was wearing, and it described what she said, and it described how I didn't answer. I am writing this on the same laptop I have used for everything. I know how that sounds. I have already accepted that by the time any of you read this, there will be a post on the blog about me writing it. About the way I am sitting on the floor with my back against the bed because I can't stand to be at a desk anymore. About this exact paragraph. I don't know who is reading me. I don't know if it's the client, or someone older than that, or something I handed over so long ago I forgot I was holding it. I only know that every secret I have ever kept is being typed up in a voice I can't tell apart from my own, and posted out into the world for an audience I can't see. I am locked inside a confession I cannot stop writing, and I do not know who is reading next. Quiet kettle. Has your mom ever used your laptop? I'm not accusing. I just remember my aunt did something similar to my cousin for years before anyone realized. Double latte Donnie. I'd be checking every smart device in that house. Old baby monitor, a smart TV nobody uses, anything with a mic that's been sitting in a corner since you moved in. On to the next one. I'm a PT at a nursing home, 29, female, and a patient is using her dead sister's voice to tell me what one of the nurses is doing. Some stories don't start with a scream. They start with a grip on the wrist. Okay, I'm typing this on my phone in my car because if I go inside my house, my roommate Chloe will hear me crying, and I cannot do that conversation tonight. I need strangers. I need people who don't know me. I'm 29. I'm a physical therapist. I live in a town in the mountains that I'm not going to name, population under 4,000, one stoplight, one diner, one small memory care facility tucked behind the Methodist church. I do in-home rehab 3 days a week, and the other 2 I rotate through that facility. Hospice stretches, contracture management, range of motion stuff. Gentle work. I love it. I love the old people. I have always loved the old people. My favorite patient there is a woman I'll call Mrs. M. She is 87, she has advanced dementia, she has been on hospice for almost a year now, which the hospice nurse keeps saying shouldn't be possible. She is the closest thing I have had to a grandmother since my own died when I was 16. She calls me Honey Girl. She pats my cheek with the hand that still works. On good days, she sings church hymns I have never heard anywhere else, in a thin little soprano. For about 3 weeks now, something has been happening during our sessions, and I told myself it was terminal lucidity. I have read about it. Patients deep in dementia surface for a moment, clear as a bell, and then they're gone again. It's supposed to be beautiful, a gift to the family. What has been happening with Mrs. M is not that. It started in the voice. Mrs. M is from Ohio, flat Midwestern vowels, the kind that turn bag into beg. But sometimes, mid-stretch, her voice drops about half an octave and softens into something Appalachian, slower, older, the cadence of someone who grew up in a holler and never quite left. The first time it happened, she said, "You've got kind hands, sugar," and I actually looked over my shoulder because it didn't sound like it had come out of her body. The chart says she had one sister, Ruth, who drowned in 1962 at 24 years old. The family photo on her dresser is the two of them on a porch, Ruth in a checked dress, squinting into the sun. This past Tuesday, late afternoon, the hall was empty. That long gold light you get in the mountains in October. I had her doing supine leg extensions, 3 sets of 10, real easy, and I was humming along to whatever was playing on my phone. Her eyes were closed. I thought she was dozing. Then her hand came off the rail and locked around my wrist. Mrs. M weighs 91 pounds. Her grip strength on the chart is documented as poor bilateral. The grip on my wrist was not poor. It was the grip of a strong woman in her 30s, and it did not hurt me, but I could not have pulled away if I'd tried. She opened her eyes. They were not tracking me the way Mrs. M's eyes track me. And the voice that came out was the soft one, the sister voice. She said, "Honey, you need to listen. After the 11 o'clock med pass, the one with the red hair, he goes in with a pillow. He's done it to 4 of them already. He's coming for me Friday." Then her hand let go, and Mrs. M blinked at me and asked if it was almost time for supper. She finally came back online late tonight with an update. The title alone made my stomach drop. I'm in the parking lot. Her alarm just went off. Please. I will write the whole middle of this story out properly tomorrow, if there is a tomorrow for me to write it in. But right now, I am sitting in the staff lot with my hazards on, and my hands shaking so hard I can barely hit the right letters. Mrs. M's vitals alarm went off 40 seconds ago. I can see the light flashing through her window from where I'm parked. The charge nurse already waved me off and told me to go home. My shift ended at 7. The red-haired one clocked in at 10:58. I watched him walk through the front doors. I am going to post the rest of what has happened over the last 3 weeks as fast as I can type it, because I need it to exist somewhere that isn't just my phone, in case something happens to me or to her tonight. Please stay with me. Let me back up. 3 weeks of this. I have to tell it in order or it won't make sense. So, Tuesday afternoon. After she told me about the 11 o'clock med pass and the pillow, I sat there frozen for what was probably 10 seconds and felt like an hour. Her hand went slack. Her eyes refocused, soft and watery, and she smiled at me and said, "Honey girl, did I fall asleep on you again?" I said, "Yes, ma'am," just for a minute, and I finished the session on autopilot, counted reps out loud, smiled, charted her in the hallway with hands that wouldn't stop shaking, told the day nurse Mrs. M had a real good range today, which was true, and walked out to my car. The drive home is 40 minutes of switchbacks. I had all of it to talk myself out of what I had heard. By the time I hit the valley, I had a whole list. The TV in the common room had been on a true crime channel that morning, I remembered hearing it. Dementia confabulation is a documented thing. Her sister Ruth had been an actual real person, so of course an old memory could surface with that voice. Old people pick up rhythms from the people around them, and we have a couple of aides from over the ridge who talk exactly like that. I told myself all of it. I almost believed some of it. I got home and Chloe was on the couch with a bottle of wine open. Chloe is 26, works at the credit union, has been my roommate for 3 years, and could read a lie on me from across the room. I gave her the sanitized version. I told her a patient said something strange today and it spooked me. I did not say the words pillow or med pass. I did not say it was Mrs. M. We drank a glass and a half and watched something stupid, and I went to bed at 10. I did not sleep. I lay there until almost 4 in the morning staring at the ceiling fan, doing math I did not want to do. 11 o'clock med pass. Red hair. We have exactly one nurse on nights with red hair. His name is Caleb. He's been there about 2 years. 2 days later, Thursday, I almost called out. I didn't. I went in. I told myself I would do a totally normal session, and if anything weird happened, I would request a reassignment and never think about it again. Cowardly, I know. She was in her chair by the window when I got there, working on a word search she could no longer actually do. She lit up when she saw me. We did upper body stretches, shoulder rolls, the easy stuff. She was chatty in her own voice. Told me about a dog she had as a girl named Biscuit. Halfway through, with no warning at all, with her eyes still open and on mine, the voice dropped. Softer, slower, Appalachian. She said, "Room 214, last week. The little one with the bird quilt. He hummed the whole time. He always hums when he does it. Church songs, mostly. He thinks nobody hears him." Then she blinked, looked down at her hands, and went back to telling me about Biscuit, mid-sentence, like nothing had happened. I got through the rest of the session. I went into the staff bathroom and sat on the closed lid of the toilet for 10 minutes. Then I went to the front desk and I asked, as casually as I could, "Hey, did we lose anybody last week? I noticed 214 is empty." The receptionist clucked her tongue and said, "Yes, sweet Miss Eileen. Passed in her sleep on Wednesday night. Family's already cleared the room." I asked who was on. She said Caleb. "Peaceful," she said. "He found her at the 1 a.m. check. The bird quilt was hers. I had seen it 100 times. There is one person at that facility I would trust with this. His name is Garrett. He's the other night nurse. He's been there longer than anyone, and he is the only person who has ever pushed back on Caleb in front of me, over something small, a charting thing. I keep picking up my phone to text him and putting it down again. Because what do I say? "Hey Garrett, a dying woman channeled her dead sister and told me your coworker is smothering our patients while humming hymns. Can we talk?"
I haven't sent it. I went home and I threw up.
2 weeks. 3 more sessions where the voice came through. She started writing things down. I bought a little digital recorder at the drugstore in the next town over because I did not want anything on my phone the facility could subpoena. I started clipping it inside the chest pocket of my scrub top before every session with her. I felt insane. I did it anyway. The voice gave me 3 more things in those 2 weeks. First one, following Monday. She said, and I am quoting from the recording, "He calls her Sleeping Beauty. Before. He stands at the foot of the bed and he says it like a joke to himself. Sleeping Beauty, time for your kiss." I had heard Caleb in the break room 2 days earlier call a patient that. I had thought it was a tasteless little nothing. I had laughed once, politely. I have not stopped thinking about that laugh. Second one, Wednesday. He doesn't use the blue gloves on the cart. He brings his own. The purple ones. Thicker. He keeps them in his locker. I waited until Friday, and I walked past the open supply closet during shift change and watched him pull a box of dark purple nitrile gloves out of his backpack and tuck them into his locker. The facility issues light blue. Only light blue. Third one, this past Monday. The camera at the end of the hall, the one over the fire door. On his break, he turns it, just a little, so it faces the wall. He turns it back before he clocks out. Nobody checks because nothing ever happens. I stayed late that night under a charting excuse. At 11:40, I walked down the dementia hall to use the bathroom by the chapel. The camera over the fire door was pointed at the wall. At 12:50, I walked back. It was aimed straight down the hall again. In between all of this, Mrs. M, in her own voice, has no idea. None. She apologized to me on Tuesday. She said, "I'm sorry I keep drifting on you, honey girl. I don't know where I go." She patted my cheek with that hand. I had to leave the room to cry in the laundry closet. And then there is the part I keep coming back to. the part I cannot explain away. Mrs. M is from Connecticut. I have been treating her for almost 4 years. I have met 2 of her children. I know how she sounds. The voice that comes through her is not her, and it is not a TV, and it is not confabulation. Because the things it is telling me are true, and I am verifying them one by one. I am terrified she is going to die before anybody listens to me. I am terrified she is going to die on Caleb's shift this week, and the family is going to get the peaceful in her sleep call, and I am going to be the only person on earth who knows what actually happened in that room, and I am going to have to live with it. I made a decision tonight. Tomorrow morning, before my first in-home, I am going to go in early and pull the death records for the dementia wing for the last 12 to 18 months. I have access. I can pull them as part of a fall risk audit I have been meaning to do anyway. That's my cover. I want to see the dates. I want to see the shift assignments. I want to know if I am crazy or if I am the only person who has been counting. If I post again, it'll be after I've looked. Tell me I'm losing my mind. Please. I would prefer that. Geriatric RN. I work hospice. Terminal lucidity is real, but it does not sound like a different regional accent. Get her on a recorder if you can do it ethically. This is a wellness check situation. Call Adult Protective Services, not the facility. I have 3 voice memos already. The accent thing is what broke me. Mrs. M is from Connecticut. She has never sounded like that in the 4 years I've treated her. Her sister Ruth grew up in West Virginia and died before I was born. I confirmed the accent with a cousin yesterday over the phone. I am not a person who believes in this stuff. I don't know what to do with that. XLTC admin. Administrator's nephew is the tell. I've seen exactly this. The facility will protect him until the lawsuit, then they'll act shocked. Document off-site. Do not email anything from a work account. Back to the update, the one she titled, From the Parking Lot. Here's what she pasted in before the live part hit. I'm in the parking lot. Her alarm just went off. Please. I am going to type everything that happened between the last post and right now as fast as I can. Skim it. I need it on the record. I pulled the records. 14 months back. The dementia wing has had 11 deaths in that window. That alone is not crazy for a hospice-heavy unit. Here is what is crazy. Every single one of those 11 was between 11:30 at night and 1 in the morning. Every single one was charted by Caleb as the discovering nurse. Every single family got some version of she went peacefully in her sleep. I made a spreadsheet on my personal laptop. I sat on my kitchen floor at 2 a.m. and stared at it for an hour. I went up the chain. I went to the director of nursing first on Monday with a soft version. I said I had noticed a clustering on night shift and wanted to flag it for a quality review. She got real still and said she would look into it and asked me to keep it between us. By Tuesday morning, my Wednesday and Thursday shifts at the facility had been quietly reassigned to in-home work. By Tuesday afternoon, I found out from the receptionist, who likes me, that Caleb is the administrator's nephew. His mother and the administrator are sisters. Then I looked up the PT before me, Marisol. I had been told she left for a better opportunity in Asheville. Public Licensing Board record shows she was terminated 6 months ago for patient boundary violations, no detail, and her license is currently under review. I found her on social media. I have not messaged her yet. I am scared to. That was this morning. I understood, sitting at my kitchen table with my coffee, that there is no chain to go up. The chain is the problem. It is me and a recorder and an 87-year-old woman who is dying. So tonight, I came in for a 4 to 7 shift I traded for on purpose. I stayed past 7 charting. I was going to stay until midnight if I had to. At 10:58, Caleb walked through the front doors with his backpack. He saw me at the nurse's station. He smiled at me. He said, "Long day, Amber." I said, "Yeah." He went to his locker. At 11:06, Mrs. M's vitals monitor alarmed. Oxygen sat dropping, heart rate spiking, then crashing. I was 3 doors down. I started toward her room, and the charge nurse, Denise, stepped into the hall and physically put a hand on my shoulder and said, "Honey, you are off the clock. Go home. We've got this." I said I'd like to stay. She said, and I am quoting, That was not a request. I walked out. I sat in my car. I am sitting in it right now. I can see the dementia wing windows from here. I can see Mrs. M's window. The light is still flashing. It has been flashing for 9 minutes. Nobody has come out. Nobody is coding her. I called the sheriff's non-emergency line because my hands were shaking too hard to remember it wasn't an emergency line, and they put me on hold. I am still on hold. Garrett is not on tonight. I checked the schedule from my car. Please tell me what to do, long-haul lurker. 11 deaths in 14 months on one wing isn't automatically suspicious for memory care, but all on one nurse's shift, all in a 90-minute window, all charted by him? That's a pattern any state surveyor would flag. Hang up the non-emergency line and dial 911, third shift ghost. Why is the charge nurse sending you home when a patient is actively alarming? That is not how any facility I have ever worked at functions. Do not leave that parking lot. Go back inside right now, ex-LTC admin. Exactly this. A PT has no clinical reason to be present at a code, sure, but you don't order a clinician off the property mid-alarm unless you want 0 witnesses in the building. Amber, film the front entrance from your car. Timestamp everything passively. Do not go back inside alone. She kept typing from the parking lot. The next chunk came in pieces. Dispatcher came back on the line. I told her everything in maybe 90 seconds. Names: Caleb, room 118, 11 deaths, the camera angle on the fire door. I said it was happening right now, and I said the charge nurse had ordered me out of the building. She did not laugh at me. She did not ask me to slow down. She said units were already rolling, 2 of them, and to stay in my vehicle. I did not stay in my vehicle. I called Garrett. He picked up on the second ring. He was off shift, home in pajamas, and I said his name and started crying, and he said, "Amber, breathe. Where are you?" I told him the parking lot. I told him the alarm. I told him about Caleb and the records and the dead PT job and the pillow. I expected him to argue with me. He did not argue with me. He went very quiet for about 3 seconds, and then he said, "I'll be there in 4 minutes. Use the kitchen door. The code is the building year backwards. Don't go in without me." He pulled up in 3. He was wearing slippers. He had a tire iron in his hand, which I will never forget. He said, on the way to the side door, "I have wondered, for about a year. I have wondered, and I have not had anything to point at." That was all he said. The kitchen door coded open. The back hall was dim, just the nightlights along the baseboards. Mrs. M's alarm was still pinging, soft and steady, the kind of alarm everyone has learned to ignore. No one was at the desk. Denise was nowhere. I could hear, from down the hall, somebody humming. Low. A hymn. The one about the old rugged cross. Garrett got there first. He stopped in the doorway of room 118, and his shoulders went stiff in a way I have never seen on a human body before. What she saw next, she typed in fragments, punctuation falling off. Mrs. M was in her bed. She was breathing. Her chest was going up and down, shallow but going. Her eyes were closed. The blanket was pulled up neat under her chin the way she likes it. Caleb was standing at the foot of the bed. He had his back half to the door. He had a pillow in his hands. Not on her face. In his hands. Held the way you hold something you are about to use. He was humming. He turned when Garrett said his name. His face did this thing I am not going to describe well. It went from soft and far away to perfectly blank in about half a second. He said, "She was restless. I was going to prop her up." Like that. Calm. Reasonable. The pillow still in his hands. Garrett said, "Put it down, buddy. Put it on the chair. Step into the hall." I heard tires on the gravel out front. I heard 2 car doors. I heard a radio chirp. Caleb heard it too. I watched him hear it. He put the pillow on the chair. He walked into the hall with his hands a little out from his sides. He did not look at me. He looked at Mrs. M once on the way past, and I cannot tell you what was in that look, and I do not want to learn. The deputies came in through the front. I sat on the floor next to Mrs. M's bed, and I held her hand, the strong one, the one that gripped my wrist 3 weeks ago. and her eyes opened just a little, and she looked at me, and in her own voice, her real Connecticut voice, she said, "Honey girl, you came back." And then she closed her eyes again, and her breathing evened out, and the monitor stopped pinging. I do not know what happens next. I do not know if she makes it through the night. I do not know what the sheriff finds when they pull the cameras and the charts. I do not know what I am going to say to her family. I do not know what I am going to say to Marisol when I message her tomorrow, and I am going to message her tomorrow. I just know she is breathing right now, and I know I was supposed to be here. I'm going home. Chloe, I'm coming home. Chloe reads too much. I am Amber's roommate. She came home shaking yesterday and wouldn't say why. Amber, if you see this, please come home tonight. I will go with you in the morning. Light a candle for Mrs. M, and let's move on to the next one. There's a room in my childhood home that my family swears never existed. I have photos of it. I'm 25, female, and I work from home as a freelance proofreader. I share an apartment with my younger sister Grace, who's 22. Our older brother Logan, 29, lives a few hours away. I'm telling you all that because the three of us drove out to our childhood house in eastern Pennsylvania last month to clean it out. Our mom's funeral was in October. The realtor wanted the place listed by Christmas, and one of the things she asked for was an accurate floor plan. Mom never had one on file. That part fell to me. I proofread for a living. Numbers have to match. If a manuscript says a character is 32 on page 4 and 34 on page 11, I catch it. So measuring rooms with a tape and a notebook is exactly the kind of task my brain enjoys. I did the downstairs in about an hour. Then I went up to the second floor. Hallway, bathroom, Logan's old room, Grace's old room, my old room, linen closet. I added everything up twice. Then I went outside, paced the footprint of the house, and added that up too. There was about 90 square feet missing on the upper floor, all of it behind the back wall of my old bedroom. I stood there with the notebook for a minute, and then I said, out loud, almost to myself, "Is that where the little green room was?" Because I remembered a green room. Small, wallpaper with white rabbits on it, a chair my size. I used to sit in there and draw. Logan was in the doorway with a box of Mom's records. He didn't say anything. He just looked at me the way you look at someone who has said something embarrassing at a funeral. Grace was on the stairs behind him. She said, very quietly, "What green room?" I laughed because I thought they were messing with me. I described it. The rabbits, the chair, the drawing I taped above the chair in second grade of our family holding hands in front of the house. Grace's face went the color of paper. Logan set the box down and said, "Haley, there was no green room. You're thinking of somebody else's house." She wasn't. I got the attic ladder out of the linen closet and pulled down the crawlspace access in the hall ceiling. Logan told me to leave it. I didn't. The crawlspace runs the length of the upstairs. I crawled along the joists with my phone light until I was over what should have been the back of my bedroom, and then I pushed sideways through pink insulation until my hand hit wood. Not the original lath, fresh 2x4s. A stud wall someone had framed in later, drywalled on one side, left open on the crawlspace side. I kicked through the drywall. It took 3 tries. The panel cracked and folded inward, and a smell came up out of the gap that I recognized before my brain could name it. Old paper. Crayon wax. The chalky sweetness of a kid's bedroom that's been closed a long time. I dropped down through the hole. The room was intact. Green wallpaper, the rabbits faded but there. A small pine dresser. A child-sized wooden chair pushed up against the wall. And taped above the chair, curling at the corners, was a drawing on manila paper. 4 stick figures in front of a house. Crayon. The handwriting at the bottom said Haley, grade 2. I yelled down through the hole for Logan and Grace to come up and see. Neither of them moved. I could hear Grace start to cry in the hallway, this thin, awful sound, like she'd been holding it in for a long time and it finally got out. Logan called up, and his voice was completely flat. He said, "Seal it back up, tonight, before we leave." I sat in the green room for maybe 20 minutes before I climbed back down. I want to describe it properly because I keep going back to the photos and I want you to see what I saw. The wallpaper was a pale, mossy green with little white rabbits on it, in rows, all facing the same direction. Some of the rabbits had been colored over in red crayon. Not by me. I would have remembered doing that. The dresser was pine, 3 drawers, the bottom one missing a knob. There was a small braided rug on the floor with a brown stain shaped like a comma near one edge. The chair was the kind of chair a 4-year-old sits in. My knees came up past my chest when I tried it. And the drawing. Manila paper, yellowed, the masking tape gone brittle. 4 stick figures, a house with a triangle roof, the word Haley in pencil at the bottom, and underneath that, grade 2 in the same handwriting. I tried to talk myself out of it the whole time I was sitting there. Maybe it was a closet that got walled off when they redid the upstairs in the 90s. Maybe the wallpaper had been a sample roll. Maybe somebody else's kid had drawn the picture and mom had saved it. But the chair was child-sized, and I remembered the rabbits. I remembered tracing them with my finger. I remembered sitting in that chair, on that rug, with the smell of the radiator coming up through the floor. You don't remember the smell of a place you've never been. Downstairs, her brother already knew which story he was going to tell. I came down through the crawl space with insulation in my hair and went straight to the kitchen. Logan was at the sink, washing a mug that didn't need washing. Grace was already in the car. I could see her through the window, in the passenger seat, looking at her phone with her shoulders up around her ears. I said, "Logan, look at me." He wouldn't. He kept rinsing the mug. He said, "Haley, please, just let it go, tonight, before we leave." I asked him what that meant. I asked him what room I had just been standing in, if there was no room. I asked him why Grace was crying in the driveway. I asked him 3 different ways what was going on in this house. He finally turned around. His hands were shaking. He gripped the edge of the counter to make them stop, and they kept shaking anyway. He said, "There was never a green room, Haley. You're misremembering. Kids invent things. You had a whole imaginary friend named Bethany when you were 6. Mom used to laugh about it. You're doing it again." I have never had an imaginary friend named Bethany in my life. I didn't argue with him. I went back upstairs with my phone. I photographed the drawing, all 4 corners, then close-ups of the handwriting. I photographed the chair from 3 angles, with my shoe in the frame for scale. I photographed the wallpaper, the red crayon rabbits, the stained rug, the dresser, the missing drawer knob. I photographed the broken stud wall from inside the green room and from inside the crawl space. I photographed my notebook page with the measurements. I did it because I could already feel it happening. The way you feel a word leaving your mouth and know, halfway through, that nobody is going to believe you said it. I needed something that existed outside of my head. By the time I was done, it was getting dark, and Logan was standing at the bottom of the attic ladder with a roll of duct tape, waiting. I told Logan I wasn't sealing anything. He looked at me for a long second, set the duct tape on the bottom step of the attic ladder, and walked out the front door. I heard him tell Grace through the car window that he was getting a motel for the night. She didn't get out. She just locked the doors from the inside. I watched her do it from the porch, the little chunk of the locks going down all at once. Logan drove off in his own car. Grace stayed in mine. I slept in my old bedroom with the crawl space hatch open above the hallway. I told myself it was so I could hear if anything moved up there. Honestly, I think I just couldn't stand the idea of closing it. Closing it felt like agreeing with them. Around 3 in the morning, I heard the front door. Soft footsteps coming up the carpet. They stopped outside my bedroom door. I didn't move. I didn't say anything. I lay there with my eyes open in the dark and listened to my sister breathing on the other side of the wood. She said, very quietly, "I'm sorry." Then she went back downstairs. I didn't sleep after that. When the sky got gray, I got up and went through the house, room by room. Mom's closet, Mom's nightstand, the boxes in the basement labeled in her handwriting. I wasn't even sure what I was looking for. A photo, a letter, a name, anything that touched the edge of that room upstairs. I want to mention something here. Our stepdad Trevor, Mom's second husband, hasn't spoken to any of us in maybe 9 years. Ugly divorce, restraining orders, the whole thing. He wasn't at the funeral. I bring him up only because for about an hour that morning, I let myself believe he was somehow responsible for the room, that he had built it, sealed it, done something. It was an easier thought to hold than the other ones forming in my head. He didn't build it. The drywall on the stud wall is older than his marriage to my mother. The thing she was looking for was locked in the den. The filing cabinet is in the den, under the window. A beige metal 2-drawer thing I have walked past my entire life without ever once seeing open. Mom kept the key on a ribbon in her jewelry box. I know this because I asked her, once, when I was maybe 14, and she told me very calmly that it was none of my business and that if I ever opened it, she would know. The jewelry box is on her dresser. The ribbon is still in it. The key is not. I checked every drawer in her bedroom. I checked the kitchen junk drawer. I checked the pockets of the coat she wore to chemo. I checked the small dish by the back door where she kept loose change. No key. Grace came inside around 10 to use the bathroom and wouldn't look at me. I asked her if she knew where Mom's filing cabinet key was. She said no, in a voice so small it sounded like it was coming from a different room, and went back to the car. I'm going to pry it open this afternoon. I have a flathead screwdriver and a hammer from the garage, and I am out of patience and out of sleep. I'll post again when I get it open. If anyone has any guesses what's in there, I'm listening, because I have run out of innocent ones. Otter in a sweater. Please do not seal it back up before you photograph every single thing in there. The wallpaper, the chair, the underside of the chair, everything. You will want proof later when you start doubting yourself. Verdigris kettle. Check the deed history at the county office before you sign anything. If your parents bought the house after she died, that room was built around her absence on purpose. If they bought it before, it's worse. Pale horse, pale rider. OP the drawing. Look at the drawing again. Count the figures one more time and tell us what the tallest one is wearing. I went back up with a flashlight after I posted this. There are 4 kids and 2 adults. The tallest kid is in a yellow dress, and the handwriting at the bottom says, "Me and my family." But I never owned a yellow dress in my life. My mom hated yellow on us. I'm shaking typing this. A few hours later, she came back to the thread with an update nobody was ready for. I found what was in the filing cabinet. The screwdriver took about 10 minutes. The lock on a beige metal cabinet from the 80s is not built to keep anyone serious out. I think Mom mostly relied on the fact that none of us would ever dare. Top drawer was the boring stuff. Tax returns going back to maybe 2004. The deed to the house, in her and our biological dad's name, dated the year before I was born. Her will, which I had already seen a copy of through the lawyer. Bottom drawer was almost empty. One manila folder pushed to the back, no label on the tab. Just a date written in black marker on the front, in her handwriting. A date in March, the year before I was born. Inside that folder, 2 documents. The first was adoption paperwork, my name on it, Haley, adopted by my mother and biological father from an agency in Allentown when I was 4 months old. I have never been told I was adopted, not once in 25 years. The second was a death certificate. A little girl named Haley, age 6, cause of death listed as drowning, dated 2 years before I was born. Same parents. My parents. I sat on the floor of the den and read both documents maybe 8 times. I kept waiting for the words to rearrange themselves. They didn't. I went back upstairs. I climbed into the crawl space. I dropped into the green room and I stood in front of the drawing and I really looked at it for the first time. There are 4 children in the picture. 2 girls, 2 boys. I have 1 brother and 1 sister. I have always had 1 brother and 1 sister. The tallest figure is in a yellow dress. At the bottom, in a 6-year-old's careful pencil, it says me and my family. It isn't my drawing. It was hers. The first Haley. Taped to the wall the week she died. And somebody, my mother probably, came in afterward and could not bear to take it down. So they sealed the door, built a stud wall, left the rabbits and the chair and the drawing exactly where they were. And 2 years later, they brought home a baby from Allentown and gave her the dead girl's name. Logan was 7 when she drowned. Grace was 4. They remember her. They remember a sister who left and a stranger who arrived with the same name. They have been pretending, the both of them, since they were small children, because our mother made them. That's why Grace cried. That's why she said sorry through my door at 3 in the morning. She was sorry for 25 years of calling me by a name that wasn't mine. I don't know who I am right now. I am going to go talk to my brother and sister. Bridget O.C. My grandmother did something similar after my aunt died as a toddler. Whole nursery drywalled over. Nobody spoke her name again. It's a generational thing in certain families, and it is so much more common than people think. Midnight lurker. The fact that both siblings reacted instantly tells me they've known about that room their entire lives. Grace crying is not the reaction of someone confused, it's the reaction of someone caught. Throwaway Clements. Exactly. Confusion looks like questions. Grace went straight to tears, and Logan went straight to damage control. They were briefed on this a long time ago and told never to bring it up around her.
I called Logan and told him to come back to the house. He showed up about 40 minutes later. Grace got out of the car when she saw him pull in. I met them both in the driveway with the manila folder under my arm. I didn't yell. I just held it up and said, "Tell me." Logan looked at the folder, and then at the ground, and then at his sister. Something in his face went loose, like a strap finally breaking after 25 years of being pulled tight. He said Mom made them swear when he was 8 years old. Sat him and Grace down at the kitchen table the week they brought me home. Told them the new baby was a fresh start, and that if anyone, ever, told me about the other one, it would break our mother, and that would be on whichever one of them did it. She said it would be like killing her a second time. He said the word she used was killing. He was 8. Grace was crying without sound. She said when she was little she used to slip up and call me by the wrong name, the old name, the one I'd been given before they renamed me. She said Mom would smack her across the mouth for it. She said by the time she was 6 she had trained herself out of it completely. She said she was sorry. She kept saying it. I didn't scream. I didn't break anything. I think part of me had already understood, somewhere up in that crawl space, and the rest of me was just catching up. I went back upstairs. I climbed into the crawl space one more time and I dropped into the green room and I taped the drawing back exactly where it had been, lined up with the old yellowed corners on the wallpaper. I straightened the chair. I closed the dresser drawer. I climbed out. I pulled the stud panel back into place and I screwed it down with the drill from the garage and I taped over the seam. The next morning I signed the realtor paperwork at the kitchen table. In the car, before I started the engine, I told Logan and Grace that we were never going to talk about this again. Not at Thanksgiving, not at my wedding if I ever have one, not on our deathbeds. Ever. They both nodded. Grace was still crying a little. Logan just nodded. The drive home was 4 hours. She answered to her own name twice without being sure it was hers. I'm at my desk now. Grace is asleep in the next room. I have a manuscript open in front of me, a romance novel by a client I've worked with for 2 years. There's a typo on page 61. The author wrote the heroine's name as Haley in one paragraph and Haley in the next. I've circled it in red and written which one in the margin. I keep looking at it. I have been signing emails Haley for 25 years. I have been answering to it in classrooms and at coffee counters and on the phone with my mother in her last weeks of life. I don't know what the agency in Allentown wrote on my original paperwork. I don't know what the woman who actually gave birth to me would have called me. I don't know if there's a version of me somewhere underneath this one, the original, untouched, with her own name. What I know is that there was a 6-year-old girl in a yellow dress who drew a picture of her family and then drowned, and her mother could not bear it, and her mother went out and got another little girl and wrote the dead one's name on her like a label on a jar. I'm going to keep the name. I don't know what else to do with it. It's the only one I've ever answered to. But every time someone calls me from across a room for the rest of my life, I'm going to wonder which of us they're talking to. Throwaway Clements. You are still you. The name didn't make you her. 25 years of being a person belongs to the person who lived them, not to a ghost on a piece of paper. Morgue moth. My family did the same thing with my older brother. I'm 31, and I still flinch sometimes when someone says his name in a normal sentence. You never really stop hearing it. I'm so sorry. On to the next one. My sister, 38, has been stalking my brother's ex-wife's new husband for 6 years. I, 35, just found out it's interstate now. I'm going to keep this on a throwaway because half my family is on the main one and I don't know who I trust yet. I'm 35, recently divorced, and I moved back into my mother's house in the suburbs about 8 months ago. Data analyst, work from home, headphones on most of the day. It's been fine. Quiet. Mom is 71 and slowing down, and I told myself living together would be good for both of us. About 4 months in, small things started feeling off. A dining chair pulled out at an angle when I came downstairs for coffee. My work laptop warm in the morning when I knew I'd shut it the night before. My prescription, the boring kind for an underactive thyroid, counted differently than I left it. Twice. Once I found the back door unlocked at 6 in the morning when I'm the one who locks it at 11. I blamed Mom. Of course I blamed Mom. She forgets things now. She shuffles around at 3 a.m. She's been on her own in this house for almost a decade. I even gently brought up the idea of seeing her doctor about memory stuff. She got quiet and said she'd think about it. I felt awful for a week. What I left out of that math was my older sister, Rachel, who is 38 and has a key. Rachel pops in. That's the family word for it. She pops in to drop off groceries, to use the printer, to sit with Mom. She lives 20 minutes away. Nobody questions it. I should also mention my brother Aaron, who's 40. Aaron went through a brutal divorce 6 years ago from a woman named Brooke. It was messy, in the boring way divorces are messy. Lawyers and a shared dog and one bad Thanksgiving. Brooke remarried maybe 3 years later. The rest of us moved on. I assumed Rachel had too. Rachel was always the sensitive one, the one who took it hardest because Aaron is her twin. But 6 years is 6 years. She had not moved on. Tonight, I went up into the crawl space above my bedroom looking for a bin of winter sweaters Mom swore was up there. It wasn't. What was up there, shoved behind the insulation directly over where my pillow sits, was a shoebox I have never seen before in my life. Inside, a stack of photographs, the kind printed at a drugstore, going back years. Restaurant receipts paper-clipped by month. A printed youth soccer schedule for a team in a town I don't recognize, with one kid's name circled. And underneath all of it, folded into quarters, a marriage certificate. Not Aaron's, not mine. A man's name I have never heard spoken in this house, married to Brooke, dated almost 4 years ago. I sat there holding it and I knew the name. I knew it because last Christmas Rachel had asked me, very casually while we were doing dishes, if I'd ever looked him up. I'd said no, why would I? And she'd laughed and changed the subject. The shoebox was sitting directly above my bed. She has been coming into this house, climbing into the attic over the room I sleep in, and adding to it. For 6 years. I don't know what to do. I haven't told Mom. I'm sitting on the bathroom floor typing this with the door locked, which is stupid because Rachel has a key to the bathroom door too. I want to walk you through the box because writing it out is the only thing keeping my hands from shaking. Top layer, photographs. Maybe 60 of them. Drugstore prints, dated on the back in Rachel's handwriting. The earliest one is from almost 6 years ago. It's him, Brooke's husband, walking out of a coffee shop, taken from across the street through what has to be a telephoto lens because you can read the logo on his cup. There's one of him at a Christmas tree lot with a little girl on his shoulders. One taken through a chain-link fence at what looks like a kid's birthday party in a public park, balloons in the corner of the frame. One of him at a gas station at night. One of him asleep on a couch through a window. And that's the photo I had to put face down on the attic floor. Second layer, receipts. Restaurant receipts, gas receipts, a dry cleaner's, all paper-clipped by month, all highlighted in yellow at the same spot, the location and the timestamp. She wasn't tracking what he bought, she was tracking where he was and when, so she could build a pattern. Third layer is the worst because it's the most organized. Index cards. Rachel's tight little handwriting, the same handwriting that signs my birthday cards. Monday gym, 6:15, leaves at 7:10.
Wednesday, picks up daughter, 3:45, side door. Takes the back road home, not the highway. Sunday mornings, hardware store, alone. Pages of this, years of it. Rachel, the sensitive one. That's what we always called her growing up. Rachel feels things deeper. Rachel needs a minute. When Aaron's marriage fell apart, Rachel was the one who stopped eating for a month, and the whole family rallied around her, not around Aaron, who was the one actually getting divorced. I defended her at every holiday for years. She's just protective. She loved Brooke like a sister and felt betrayed. She'll come around. I am sitting in the attic above my own bed, and I am realizing she has been climbing up here while I'm on work calls downstairs. The warm laptop, the chair pulled out, the back door unlocked at 6 in the morning because she let herself out before Mom was up. It was never Mom. I almost took my mother to a neurologist. I almost made her cry over a doctor's appointment she didn't need because my sister has been using my bedroom ceiling as a filing cabinet. I climbed down. I needed water. I went past the coat rack by the front door, and there's a tan coat hanging there that doesn't belong to me or Mom. I know whose it is. I reached into the pocket because at this point, why not? And I pulled out a folded piece of paper, still warm from being printed today. It's a flight itinerary, one way, in Rachel's name, leaving Saturday. The destination city is the one circled on the soccer schedule upstairs. I put the itinerary back exactly the way it was folded. I put the shoebox back exactly where it was, insulation tucked the same way. I went downstairs and made coffee like a normal person, and got on a work call at 9 and stared at a spreadsheet for an hour without seeing any of it. Then I started, quietly, looking. The shared desktop in the den is the one Mom uses for solitaire and Rachel uses when she pops in to print things. I waited until Mom was at her water aerobics and pulled up the browser history. Rachel never logs out of her own profile. There it was, going back months. The husband's full name plus his employer, the employer's office address, street view of the building, the kids' elementary school district, the name of a town 2 states over neither of us have ever been to, searched dozens of times in the last 6 weeks. Real estate listings on that town's main street, a printable map of the neighborhood where Brooke and her husband apparently just bought a house. I didn't even know they had moved. I tried Mom over dinner, carefully. I said something like, "Hey, has Rachel mentioned Aaron lately? She seems off." Mom didn't look up from her plate. She said, "Oh, honey, Rachel just keeps tabs on that whole situation because of your brother. You know how she is. Don't make a thing of it." I said, "Keeps tabs how?" She said, "You know, just tabs," and changed the subject to the neighbor's roof. She knew the word tabs. She had it ready. That was the moment I understood my mother was not the one being protected. It is 2 in the morning. I am posting this from the bathroom again with the door locked. I have not told anyone in my family. Aaron would call Rachel before he called me back. Mom is, apparently, on the inside of whatever this is. Am I overreacting? She's my sister. She has never been violent. She brings me soup when I'm sick. She organized Mom's 70th birthday. The man in those photos has never met her. He has a daughter who is maybe 8. He has a wife who used to be married to my brother and who, as far as I know, has not spoken to any of us in years. Please, I need someone outside this house to tell me what I'm looking at. Northbound Kara. 6 years is not a fixation. That's a project. Please do not confront her alone in that house. Dogwood April. Your brother Aaron is going to be unbearable about this. Brace yourself. He'll twist it into you betraying Rachel. 2 days later, she came back to the thread. She was stopped at the airport. My mother knew. I am writing this from a hotel room. I'll explain. After the comments on my first post, I couldn't sleep. The word felony kept doing laps in my head. So yesterday afternoon, while Mom was at her standing hair appointment, I went back up into the attic. I told myself I just wanted to photograph everything for a record, in case I needed it later. The shoebox was a little fuller than it had been 3 nights ago. On top, brand new, was a printed boarding pass. Not the itinerary from the coat, a real boarding pass, gate assigned, seat assigned, leaving Saturday morning, landing in the town I'd seen searched dozens of times on the desktop. Underneath the boarding pass was a small manila envelope I hadn't opened before. Inside the envelope was a single key, freshly cut, the brass still bright and unworn at the teeth. Taped to the key was a slip of paper with a street address. I plugged the address into my phone. It is a house on a quiet residential block in that same town. Public records say it sold 6 weeks ago to Brooke and her husband. I sat there with that key in my hand for a long time. Then I noticed the sticky note stuck to the inside lid of the box. Yellow, the kind Mom keeps by the landline. My mother's handwriting, the loop on the D's I have known my whole life. 3 words. Second drawer, hall. I went downstairs. I opened the second drawer of the hall console table, the one with the takeout menus and dead batteries. Under the menus was a printed photo of the inside of that same house, a real estate listing photo, with 1 bedroom circled in pen. My mother did not just suspect. My mother helped. My mother told my sister where to find the key blank, what to circle, where to sleep. She photographed every page. She did not slam a single door. I put the box back. I put the sticky note back. I went into my room and packed a weekend bag like I was going on a normal trip. Toothbrush, laptop, the chargers, a change of clothes. I said goodnight to Mom at the usual time. I waited until her bedroom light went off. Then I carried my bag out the front door at 11:15 and drove to a hotel off the interstate and paid in cash because I didn't want a card hitting our shared account. I'm here now. The door is bolted. I called the police in our county this morning, and they took a report and told me to come in tomorrow with the photographs and the box, which I will be retrieving while Mom is at church. I have not slept. I keep thinking about that key, how someone in a hardware store handed it to her over the counter, how she said thank you. Merrick. Call the police in the destination state too, not just yours. They need a heads up before she lands, not after. Half-price Hamlet. The cut key is the line. Possession of that plus a plane ticket is intent. Do not wait for the weekend. Go today. Merrick. Agreed completely. A cut key to a house you do not live in a state you do not live in, paired with a boarding pass. Any prosecutor in the country can work with that. Waiting only gives her mother time to move the box. Final update, then I'm done with this account. Saturday morning, I went home while Mom was at the early service. I took the shoebox, the boarding pass, the key, the sticky note in her handwriting, and the printed listing photo from the hall drawer. I drove straight to the police station and put all of it on the front desk. The detective who came out had already gotten the heads-up call from the destination state because I'd phoned them Friday night the way the comments said to. Rachel's plane landed at 10:42. She was met at the rental car counter. In her carry-on, they found the key, a folding knife, a roll of duct tape, and a bag of zip ties. She has not been home since. Her lawyer pushed for a plea early. She took it. I am not going to write out the charges here because I do not want this thread tied to the court file, but the word interstate is in them, and so is the word stalking, and she will not be out for a long time. Brooke's husband sent me one email, 3 sentences. He thanked me. He said his daughter is fine. He asked me, politely, to never contact them again. I won't. My mother has not spoken a word to me since the morning of the arrest. She still cooks for 2. She sets a plate in front of me at 6 and a plate in front of herself, and we eat across the table, and she looks at the wall behind my head. I asked her once, the first week, why? She said, because she's my daughter. I said, so am I. She didn't answer. Aaron called me exactly once, screaming, to say I had ended the family over a misunderstanding. I let him finish. I haven't picked up since. I had the locks changed the afternoon Rachel was charged. The locksmith asked if I wanted Mom to have a copy of the new key. I said yes. She is 71 and this is her house. I just also installed a deadbolt on my bedroom door, and I keep that one to myself. I sleep with the light on. That's the part nobody warns you about. Quiet Fern. I'm so sorry. The hardest part of this kind of thing isn't the stalker. It's realizing the people who raised you chose them. Tessa_. Please update when you can. And please get a locksmith for that house the second Rachel is in custody. Your mother will give her the new key too. That's the last story for today. Thanks for staying through all of them, and if you want more like this, you know where the subscribe button lives.